Okay, we'll do a Tafo talk. So a lot of discussion has been happening in regards to seeding, and we, are seeing, just in the last like 12 to 18 months, a bunch of new winners. So we have, Zane, Plup, Wizzy, and Axe, who are now starting to win tournaments. And I think we're melee's in such an interesting time, but I think one of the key factors I want to talk about on why this might be the case is because this guy retired, Armada, this lovable figure that if you look at his resume, even in like 2016 and 2017, first a lot of first, sometimes second, and the occasional like third or fourth, but overall, really, really, really consistent. Really consistent resume. And why Armada retiring plays a large role here is that if you look at the head-to-head charts right now for Melee, even Hungrybox is like losing to a lot of the other top 7 members or like the top 8 members, losing record to Zane right now, losing record to Leffen, and losing record to Wizzy, but has strong matchups against, like, relatively speaking, to the other people in the top 8. Also loses to Amsa, by the way. But in the era that had Armada, so like Armada, no matter what, you'd probably have to face him to win the tournament, just because of how consistent he was. Whereas now, even though Hungrybox has gotten weaker, there are many ways that if Hungrybox was like the threat, that if you just are not good against Hungrybox, you can find brackets or situations much more likely to happen where you don't have to play him to win. Where a Zane, an Amsa, a Leffen, or even a Wizzy can now take him out, and then you can progress and play that person that beat Hungrybox and go like, hey, like I won the tournament without having to play Hungrybox. And so just because there's so many more people now that like are in the ecosystem that can beat Hungrybox, it opens the door for a bunch of other people to win the tournament. So Hungrybox getting worse and the field getting better has played a large role into this kind of like rock, paper, scissors meta right now. We see, especially with the top 8. But I also want to mention that rock, paper, scissors of players doesn't exactly work when you have Armada, who has at least an even matchup, relatively speaking, or a very dominant matchup against everybody else. So when Armada's in the field, it's not very often that you see Armada get eliminated early by somebody else. You look at this resume when he was at his peak, even his bad performances were in second or third. So like if you were a Wizzy, a Zane, or any of these players that are creeping up, like pretty much you have to tell yourself like you're going to have to beat Armada to win the tournament. In fact, when Plup won Genesis and he started to get really good, he had to defeat Armada along the way. And so the parity exists because avoiding Armada now happens because Armada is no longer in the tournament. And back then in 2018, you typically had to win at least 3 sets against Hungrybox and Armada. Whether it's 1 set against Hungrybox and 2 sets against Armada, or something else. Sometimes you may play like 4 sets if you lose a set. But overall, that's way harder to do than just to potentially avoid Hungrybox or just play Hungrybox in 1 set because somebody else defeated that player, and then you only had to play him once to win the tournament. It's just way easier now to win if you're an up-and-coming player. Now, I want to make it perfectly clear here. This isn't I'm not trying to undermine the victories of Axe or Wizzy or the accomplishments of Zane or Plup. They're all really good players, and they played the best in the tournaments they won. But I just want to point out, if you guys are wondering why there's such an open field right now, you can really look at one player being gone, and to a loose extent, Mutaking being a roadblock for a lot of players. Those 2 players being gone, but mostly Armada, opens the field widely. And the other important thing I want to really mention here is that we're seeing an influx of new players as a lot of the old guard are leaving. And the last time we really had this was in 08 to 09 when Brawl came out. If you look at the MLG top 8 for Vegas, where it was Ken, PC Chris, Korean DJ, Mutaking, Hugs, as in Chu and Isaiah, like by the time 08 to 09 came, most of them left the scene. So it really opened the door for a bunch of new players to come in. The only player that really, continued was Mutaking, and to like a loose extent, PC Chris. and a little bit of Korean DJ. That largely moved on for a while, and so did the other players. So that really opened the possibilities for Armada, Mango, Hungrybox, to a loose extent, the Shizwiz, and a few other players to really step up and take over as the best of Melee. And similar to those times with the post MLG early Brawl era, because of some of the big players leaving now, it really does open the field up for a bunch of the other new up and coming players to rise up and become the best. So just really want to point out two things here. Once again, I'm not undermining anyone's performance here, but I just really want to just show how much of a gatekeeper Armada was and how good he was. You look at that resume here. If you want to win the tournament, you have to beat Armada twice. It's very unlikely that you skip Armada and win the tournament. And him being gone makes the road path so much easier. And also, have to give credit. Players are stepping up. They're getting better. Hungrybox was once, at a unstoppable, unreachable level for so many people, and a lot of people are getting better at the game and they're beating Hungrybox. So there's a mix of that too. Players are improving, but also want to point out how good Armada was. So that's kind of the talk I want to have here, and kind of why we're seeing just so much variation in kind of results.